Alright, you lot. I hope you're sitting comfortably, because I'm about to prove that every single one of you has been robbed blind and didn't even notice. Every game in your library, not yours. That digital collection you've spent thousands on belongs to someone else. Grab a brew, settle in, and prepare to have your digital illusion shattered like a cheap controller after a rage quit. It's going to be a long one. So if you need a piss break, now's your chance. I'll wait. Actually, no, I won't. So Ages444 asked me this beauty of a question about digital versus physical ownership. I have a question about digital versus physical. I know physical is better in the sense that you own that case. However, nowadays, physical is same as buying digital. My question is, with me buying games like Alan Wake 2, Balatro, Spec Ops Line, 4D listed, or even Pac-Man digitally, do I own them, or are they still at risk of being unplayable? I ask because I'm not worried of losing access to any game that I've used as examples and some that I haven't mentioned, unlike always online games. I know that you used GOG and mentioned that you own games you buy on GOG. So could you explain more what differences are in detail? Mate, I'm going to rip that plaster clean off, and fast. Even with GOG, you don't own IP, but you do own that copy of game. And unless you bought it on GOG, you don't own a bloody thing. What you got is a license, a digital post-it note from some suit in California that says, "Aye, you can play this, for now, maybe, if we feel like it." But don't just take my word for it. Go read Steam's subscriber agreement. Right there in black and white it says, "Content and services are licensed, not sold. Your license confers no title or ownership." See, not me being dramatic down at a pub after too many ales. You've got Valve's own legal department telling you to your face that you own absolutely not. Sweet fuck all, mate. And you know, as of January 1st, 2025, California Law AB 2426 now forces digital storefronts to tell you you're purchasing a license, not a product. They can't even use the word buy anymore without slapping that disclaimer on. Yeah, they had to pass an actual law to stop these companies lying to you about what you're getting. Think about that for a second. Government had to legally force corporations to stop committing what is essentially fraud. That don't tell you everything about how industry views your wallet. I don't know what will. I can already hear some clever clogs in comments going, "Just buy physical then, problem solved, you muppet." Yeah, about that. See, line between digital and physical has got more blurred than my vision after a Friday night session. When you buy a physical copy now, for most games, just a fancy key to download a game from servers anyway. Congratulations, you paid full price for what's essentially a very expensive drinks mat. Microsoft proved this in spectacular fashion last year when the first-party Xbox titles were shipped as code in a box. Avowed, Ninja Gaiden 4, Outer Worlds. You'd pay full whack, crack open box all excited, and find not but a download code inside. PS5 versions at same game got actual discs. Microsoft backtracked after everyone lost their minds. But even then, discs to put out often contain bugger all. Doom Dark Ages shipped with less than 1 gigabyte of actual game data on its disc. 1 gig! I've had farts with more data than that. However, and this is important, so perk up, there are still reasons to buy physical. Some games genuinely are still on disc or cartridge. Not all of them, but some. And for those, aye, crack on. But here's another reason that nobody in gaming ever talks about. And this is where my cybersecurity background kicks in and I get to be all properly paranoid like a conspiracy theorist. When you buy a digital download, you're entering your card details into that system. And if that system gets hacked, and they do get hacked more often than you'd like to think, those nefarious little gremlins get your card details. Now here's the bit that will make you proper uncomfortable. Even if you specifically untick that box saying, "Save me card details, you thieving bastards," those details are still held on their system for around 30 days. It's not illegal, just how payment processing works under PCI DSS. That's Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard for anyone wondering. They need transaction data for chargebacks, refunds, and compliance. So for a full month after every purchase, your card information is sitting on someone else's servers whether you like it or not. Now sure, it's supposed to be encrypted, but it's still there. With physical copy though, you walk into a shop, pay cash, walk out. Nobody's storing out except maybe CCTV footage of your ugly mug. Frankly, that's their problem, not yours. But what are you actually getting, depending on where you shop? And this affects everyone, you and your nan. So first thing you need to understand is what DRM actually is. DRM stands for Digital Rates Management, but in plain English it's a lock on your game. When you try to play, that lock phones home to some server and asks, "Is this person allowed to play right now?" If server says, "Yeah," game launches. If server says, "No," or if a server's having a little lie down and can't be asked to answer, you're not playing out. That's it. DRM is digital bouncer deciding whether you're allowed into a club you already paid to enter. Now GOG is 100% DRM free. Every single game on there. Only just over 5,200 titles. And unless you're playing online multiplayer, not one of them requires internet, a launcher, or permission from anyone to play. When you buy on GOG, you download a complete installer file. No online checks, no verification, no CD key. You stick that installer on a USB drive, hard drive, external USD, an old laptop you found didn't skip, whatever you fucking want. That game's yours. GOG can burn to the ground tomorrow and every game in your library still works, because files are on your hardware with zero phone home requirements. This, ladies and gentlemen, and various kitchen appliances, is what we call genuine ownership. itch.io is Wild West or indie gaming, about 91% DRM free. Brilliant for experimental and indie titles, but you're not finding Alan Wake 2 on there unless someone's made a very optimistic fan game. Epic Game Store has no store-wide DRM, which sounds great until you realise developers are free to add their own. Denuvo, Ubisoft Connect, whatever the fancy. There's no labelling system, so you're flying blind. Some estimates put DRM-free percentage at around 25 to 50%, but without official numbers from Epic, that's just speculation at best. It's like asking how many beans are in a tin, and Epic just shrugging. Steam, on the other hand, that's roughly 4% DRM-free. And best part is, they don't label which games are DRM-free and which aren't. You have to rely on community-maintained lists and manually test games by closing Steam and trying to run executable directly like some sort of digital archaeologist. Not desktop shortcut, mind. Nah, you need to locate install file and launch from there. Desktop shortcut makes you launch Steam to play. This so-called most consumer-friendly platform can't even be asked to tell you which games you can actually play without their permission. And even ones that you can have a sneaky requirement that most casuals wouldn't know how to bypass. Some friendship that is. Consoles, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, 0% DRM free. Every single game requires a platform to authenticate. If they shut down their servers for good, it'd be pointless buying a pre-owned console. You can pick up an old PS2, Xbox 360 or any other older console and your physical games would still work as good as they did way back then. And yeah, right now you can play some physical games offline, but that's only if they're not always online like Destiny 2 and Call of Duty. And even then, if it's a newer Ubisoft game, they'll likely yank alt rates away from you, and that's game gone. Because that disc is just a partial DRM key, otherwise known as a stub, which tells a console to download a game. Your digital console library is most at risk of any purchase you can make. If the server's gone, so's that game. But on PC, if Steam goes down, you can't play your Steam games unless you know how for DRM-free ones, which is highly annoying, but your computer still works. You can play GOG games, which are all DRM-free, browse internet, write angry tweets about Steam being down. Platform itself is fine. Point here is that entire console ecosystem is built around mostly always online authentication these days. It's entire bloody system, not just games that need permission. Your console could one day become a very expensive paperweight with pretty lights. If you don't believe me, try it. Unplug your console from internet and stick in a new modern game disc. 9 times out of 10, you'll get a message saying you need to download a day one patch before you can play. That patch is massive, sometimes bigger than what's on disk itself. And if servers are down, or if Microsoft or Sony decide to put plug on that console's online services, that patch is gone. Your disc becomes naught for an expensive shiny frisbee. Try factory resetting your console and setting it up without an internet connection. Out of box, that console requires an update to be able to function, but without those servers running, that patch ain't there, and that console is about as much use as a chocolate teapot. And this ain't theoretical doom-mongering from some paranoid Yorkshire git. This has already happened. Original Xbox Live shut down in 2010. Any game that required Xbox Live authentication or updates is now unplayable, even with a disc. Wii Shop Channel shut down in 2019. Every digital game purchased on there is gone unless you downloaded it before it shut down, and you can't re-download it now. It's just gone. vanished, like my hopes for a competent government. PlayStation 3 store nearly got shut down in 2021. Sony announced a closure date, then backtracked after everyone went mental. But that were a warning shot across bow. It's coming, and when it does, hundreds of games that are only available digitally on PS3 will cease to exist. Poof! Gone, like they never happened. Let me tell you a story that perfectly highlights why DRM is more dangerous than most people realise. Back on Modern Warfare 3, just before XDefiant dropped, I was playing some MWZ with my lads. Proper good game, we were having a laugh. About midway through one of those runs where everything were going right and you've got decent loot and you're feeling like an actual competent human being for once, out of nowhere, both me and my eldest got cut off. Server connection error. Lost everything. All that progress. Gone. But my youngest, he was still playing absolutely fine. Didn't miss a beat. Why? Because me and eldest were on Steam. My youngest were on Battle.net. It was Steam that went down, not game servers. Call of Duty servers were running perfectly. For once. Because our copies were tied to Steam's DRM, when Steam's authentication servers had a wobble, we got booted from a game that were working fine. Our game license couldn't be verified, so out we went. Cheers for that, Gabe. And before anyone blames me internet, my eldest and I live miles apart. Different houses, different ISPs. My youngest lives with me. Same house, same internet, same game, same server, same network for both of us, but different DRM layer is only variable. Because he were on Battle.net and we were on Steam. So he carried on playing without a single issue. We managed to get back online eventually, but Steam went down several more times that night and we just gave up. And what makes this point even more delicious is all these people screaming at developers to fix your servers when they get disconnected. Aye, sometimes it's game's fault, but I'm telling everyone listening right now, if you're ever disconnected with a connection error, check Steam first before you lay blame, because game might be running perfectly, and it's Steam's DRM layer that's shat bed. With GOG, for games that have online multiplayer, if you get booted with a server error, there's nobody else to blame but game itself. GOG has no DRM. It don't require authentication. It's just a direct connection to game servers. As it should be. Novel concept, that. So all these people saying Steam's most consumer-friendly platformer of them all, absolute bollocks. Consumer-friendly would be not locking you into requiring their launcher to play a game, so you can play uninterrupted when they decide to have a little technical breakdown. Consumer-friendly would be telling you which games are DRM-free. Consumer-friendly would be having better fucking customer service. Now, to answer Aegis directly, yeah, your games are at risk, depending on where you purchased them. But here's practical bit. Your games are at low risk of suddenly vanishing tomorrow, as long as platform stays up and publisher don't pull them. However, low risk ain't no risk, and fundamental issue remains. You don't own them, you only have permission to them. And permission can be revoked when someone in boardroom decides it's more profitable to take your toys away. My advice? The game you want's on GOG, buy it there. Download installer files, back them up, stick them on an external drive. That's your insurance policy against entire digital gaming industry losing its collective mind. If the game's not on GOG and you're buying on PC, buy it wherever you need to. But go in with your eyes open, knowing what you're getting, know what you're risking. And if you're buying on console, especially digitally, understand that you're only renting, not buying. Your access to that game is tied to a company's willingness to keep servers running, and history shows us that willingness has an expiry date. Usually right around when they want to sell you next-gen console. Speaking of not owning games, let's talk about this week's free offerings. Because Note says we value as a customer quite like getting your license to games you'll never truly own. It's like being given keys to a house that someone else can lock you out of whenever they fancy. Amazon Prime are at it again with their freebies. First up, via Epic Games, they've dropped Guardian. It's a strategic roguelike tower defense game where you're building and upgrading towers, recruiting armies, learning spells, constructing wonders, and shaping terrain to protect your castle. It looks alright, to be fair. Might pass some time for a few minutes between proper gaming sessions. One of those I'll just do one more run situations that either hooks you or bores you within 20 minutes. No middle ground with roguelites, is there? Also on Prime via Legacy Games, there's a Ramp World, Travel to Brazil. And I use word game very loosely here. You're looking at 30 amazing sights of Brazil. Sugarloaf Mountain, Amazon jungle, picturesque caves, Rio de Janeiro, snow-white beaches, national parks, museums, ancient castles. It's basically a slideshow with extra steps. If this is your idea of fun, I'm painting my house this week. You want to come watch it dry? Genuinely might be more interactive than this. At least with paint drying, you can poke it and see if it's tacky yet. This just shows you pictures of Brazil and expects you to be impressed. Go on Google Earth for free and at least you can zoom in on people's gardens like a proper nosy bastard. Over on Epic Games proper, Nagin away Darkside Detective, a fumble in dark. Join Detective McQueen as he puzzles his way through 6 cases, risking life and pixelated limb to solve macabre mysteries plaguing some poor town. Not one of the greatest games in the world, but still a bit of fun, not less. It's got that point-and-click adventure charm with a decent sense of humour. Worth the shot if you haven't played it yet. You've spent more time on worse things, like reading Twitter or watching that Brazilian slideshow I just mentioned. And finally, on Epic, Nobody Wants to Die. Lose yourself in a dystopian New York, 2329. It's an interactive noir story where you lead in an investigation into advanced technology as Detective James Carra, risking it all in pursuit of a serial killer targeting city's elite. Now that title's a lie, because not everyone wants to live. But this first-person futuristic narrative has a little intrigue boiling up in me. Might give it a try, actually, sitting a few of my buttons. If it's even half as good as premise suggests, could be a decent evening's entertainment. So there you go, 4 free licenses to games you'll never own. But hey, at least when they take them away, you won't be losing money. Silver linings and all that. Grab them, play them, enjoy them while corporations still allow you to. And if any of these end up on GOG later, buy them there if you actually want to own them proper. Now, let's get to your questions. This one's from Firkinell, who asks, Hey Scotty, with all stuff going on at your home, do you find time to watch any films? If so, what film have you seen and what would you recommend? Mate, I script my videos while I'm watching TV and movies. Multitasking, innit? I've got 3 screens set up, so I can use one for whatever I'm watching, another's got my script document open, third is for comms. I'll be sat there typing away about whatever gaming controversies kicked off this week while some film's playing in background. Sometimes I'm barely paying attention. Sometimes film grabs me and I stop writing for a bit. That's how I get through both my workload and my ever-growing watch list without completely losing my mind. That'll also tell you why I said last week scripting takes me 4 to 5 hours to complete. But before I get into recommendations, let me tell you about one you should absolutely avoid like fucking plague. Joker Folie à Deux. 2 hours and 18 minutes of my life I'll never get back. They took the first Joker, which were dark and intense and actually about something, and turned the sequel into a musical with Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga singing at each other while plot goes nowhere. They took a perfectly good villain origin story and turned it into sad karaoke night at world's most depressing pub. Pretentious, boring, waste of time. Skip it. That's all I'm saying about that mess. Now, films actually worth watching. Recently I watched fair few. Mickey 17, Death of a Unicorn, Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Twisters, 57 Seconds, In Lost Lands, Barbarian, American Society and Magical Negroes, I Still See You. All really good movies in my opinion, but that's just me. Everyone's got different tastes. My favourite were 57 Seconds. It's about a tech blogger who lands an interview with a tech guru and stops an attack on him, then finds a mysterious ring that takes him back 57 seconds into the past. Josh Hutcherson and Morgan Freeman are in it. Really interesting concept. Proper sci-fi thriller that don't try to be bigger than it needs to be. Why can't I ever find a magic ring? Best I've found is a hula hoop stuck under my car seat, and all that does is make me hungry. Hutcherson's great in it. He's playing a tech blogger who's a bit out to his depth, bit naive, and you watch him figure out how to use ring while also realising he's got no idea what he's doing. Morgan Freeman is, well, Morgan Freeman. He could read bloody phone book and make it compelling. He's got that gravitas that makes you believe every word he says, even when what he's saying is completely mental. Film's smart, it's tense, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. If you like sci-fi that's more about ideas than explosions, this is a good one. Death of a Unicorn were hilarious, proper dark comedy, bit weird, bit twisted, exactly what I'm into. Won't spoil it, because half the fun is not knowing where it's going, but premise is mental and film commits to it completely. If you like your comedy where side are absolutely unhinged, give it a watch. It's one of those films where you're laughing but also slightly disturbed, and that's a hard balance to pull off. American Society and Magical Negroes were mad fun. Probably not everyone's cuppa, especially that anti-woke crowd who'll lose their minds over the title alone. But it's a great movie with some hilarious and sometimes dark jokes. Premise is brilliant. There's this secret society of black magicians whose job it is to make white people's lives easier and more comfortable. Because if white people are happy, they're less likely to be dangerous to black people. It's proper sharp satire that's fun and uncomfortable in equal measure. Film tears apart that old Hollywood trope of black characters existing solely to help white protagonists. It literalises it, makes it explicit. You're laughing, but you're also thinking about every film you've ever seen where a black character's entire purpose was to guide or inspire a white main character. It's clever, it's funny, and yeah, it's going to upset people who think any examination of race in media is woke nonsense. But those people weren't going to like it anyway. In Lost Lands were an interesting fantasy film, bit slower paced, more atmospheric than action heavy, but if you're into dark fantasy with that grimy medieval feel, it's worth a look. Not going to blow your mind, but it's solid. And I Still See You. That one's a bit older, 2018. I don't know how it passed me by on radar, but watched it recently and got proper hooked into it. It's set in a world where ghosts roam Earth. They call them remnants. High school girl has an encounter that basically tells her to run because her life's in danger. Film then goes into investigating why and how to save her life. It's more psychological thriller than horror. Like, I were playing detective watching it, and I love that in a movie. Especially if it can dupe me and I don't figure it out. I absolutely called it on this one. And for context, I figured out Orphan in the first 15 minutes. If you know, you know. There's not many can say that, and even fewer who did it faster. Though there are some. So yeah, if you're looking for something to watch, 57 Seconds is my top recommendation. Smart sci-fi with a great cast. Death of a Unicorn if you want something darkly funny. American Society of Magical Negroes for sharp satire. But please, for the sake of your sanity, avoid Joker 2 at all costs. Right then, next question comes from Pirate Friendly Arsonist, who asks, "Hey Scotty, any new twonks?" Mate, there's twonks coming out at woodwork these days like termites in a condemned building. And I tell you, if I were a general channel talking about everything, I'd have a Twonk Chronicles video going up every single fucking day. And right now, I'd have a lot to say about our glorious Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, because there's no bigger twonk in British politics. Man's got approval ratings lower than a snake's belly and about as much charisma as a damp flannel. But I'm a gaming channel, so I stick to gaming twonks. And believe me, there's plenty to choose from. Remember when Epstein files got released back in January 2024? Court documents got unsealed, thousands of pages of dispositions and testimonies. Proper grim stuff. And buried in all that, someone spotted that Fortnite and Call of Duty got mentioned. And twonks absolutely lost their minds. Now context matters here. Games were mentioned because someone in dispositions were talking about what Epstein or his associates did in their spare time, or what were on computers that got seized. It wasn't Fortnite causes trafficking or Call of Duty's part of conspiracy. It's just games existing in the same documents as a horrible person. That's it. But twonks don't care about context, do they? They see Epstein and Fortnite in the same sentence and the brain short-circuit like a toaster in a bathtub. Suddenly it's, this is why COD's failing. This is why we should boycott Fortnite. They're all in on it. Grow fuck up, you absolute melts. Game being mentioned in court documents don't mean game's bad. It means someone who played that game were bad. By that logic, we should boycott breathing because Epstein did that too. Should we boycott eating food? Hell, should we boycott wearing clothes? Because I guarantee Epstein did all those things as well. It's such a stupid tech that I don't even know where to start. But that's twonks for you. You see a headline, don't read an article, don't understand context, and just start screaming into the void about how this proves whatever conspiracy theory they've already decided is true. And speaking of COD, twonks are ripe on that subject right now. There's this narrative going around that Call of Duty Black Ops 7's beating Battlefield 6 in player counts, and they're using cherry-picked screenshots from Steam charts taken at stupid o'clock in the morning. You'll see them posting on Twitter or Reddit going, look, COD has more players, Battlefield's dying. And if you actually look at those screenshots, they're taken at like 3-4 AM, when player counts are at their absolute lowest. Right now, at time of recording, it's 12 PM on Saturday, and Steam charts show Battlefield 6 sitting at about 36,000 players. COD at 29,000. Battlefield's ahead by a few thousand. But a few hours ago, COD were ahead by about 1,000. Big whoop. These numbers fluctuate constantly throughout the day, and comparing them at off-peak hours is meaningless. It's like measuring how popular a pub is at 6 AM on a Tuesday. Of course it's empty, you numpty. Everyone's asleep or at work, or questioning their life choices. Now I'm not saying Battlefield 6 is dead. Game's actually in pretty decent state. DICE fixed a lot of problems from launch, added content, listened to feedback for once. But cherry-picking data to make it look like it doesn't help anyone. It just makes you look like a twonk. And aye, Battlefield's in a transitional period right now. On December 21st, 2025, Zampella were killed in a car crash on Angeles Crest Highway in California. If you don't know who Vince Zampella was, he co-founded Infinity Ward, created original Call of Duty, left Activision, founded Respawn Entertainment, made Titanfall and Apex Legends. EA put him in charge of overseeing Battlefield because they knew it needed someone who understood great shooters. Man were a legend, 55 years old, gone. That hit industry hard. It hit EA hard. It hit everyone who worked with him. And it left Battlefield Studios without clear leadership right before they were supposed to launch Season 2. Just days before, EA announced they were delaying Season 2 from January 20th to February 17th. Said it would to give themselves extra time to polish based on community feedback. But when you consider Zampella died, suddenly that delay makes a lot more sense. Studio lost its leader, man who was supposed to be guiding franchise's direction, making final calls on what's going in Season 2. He's gone, and EA had to scramble. Enter Julian Gerighty. On January 16th, 2026, EA announced Gerighty had left Ubisoft Massive to join Battlefield Studios. Now Gerighty's got solid pedigree. Watch Dogs, Division, Division 2, Star Wars Outlaws, nearly 30 years at Ubisoft. He knows live service games. Timing's interesting. Gerighty had just appeared on New Game Plus Showcase a week earlier talking up Division 3, saying it was shaping up to be a monster. Then a week later he's announced as leaving for EA. Given Zampella had just died and Battlefield was suddenly without leadership, it's clear EA moved fast. So between losing Zampella on December 21st and announcing Gerighty's hire on January 16th, there were about 3.5 weeks where Battlefield Studios were operating without clear direction at top. That's not ideal when you're trying to finalise major content drop. And that's why Season 2 got delayed. Not just community feedback, but because Studio needed time to regroup. To the credit, EA's been transparent about delay. They extended Season 1, adding bonus content, running double XP weekends, trying to keep players engaged while they get Season 2 sorted. Will it work? Maybe. Gerighty's no Vince Zampella, but he's got good experience. But this is the problem with Twonks. They don't think about any of this. They see a screenshot of player counts at 3 AM and go, "See? Battlefield's dying!" Without stopping to think about context. What's happening behind the scenes? What numbers actually mean? They don't ask questions like, why am I comparing player counts when nobody's playing? What are numbers at peak hours? What are total counts across all platforms? What's going on with studio leadership? They don't ask because they don't want answers. They want to be right. They want to feel like they've spotted something nobody else has. And when you point out they're talking bollocks, they double down, call you a shill, a fanboy, whatever insult they think will shut you up. Honestly, it's exhausting. But it's also hilarious, because they make it so easy to take piss out of them. They hand me material on a silver platter and then get upset when I serve it back with a side of sarcasm and a garnish of facts they refuse to acknowledge. And that's why I enjoy taking piss out of them, because they make it so easy. They never stop being twonks, which means I'll never run out of material. It's job security, really. So keep your eyes peeled on YouTube, because more Twonks Chronicles are coming. Twonks never learn, and that's exactly how I like it. Okay, next one's a question from Ages444 again, who asks about Syndicate. This is a fun one, and I want your opinion and thoughts about this game, Syndicate. It's pretty much a genre overall, since there's a game that has the same name, but one's a city builder, I think, and other one's a FPS cyberpunk power trip. I've only played FPS 1, so is it a good addition or mix-up to name? Right, first things first, Syndicate want a city builder. Close, but not quite. Original Syndicate were a real-time tactics game, which is a different beast entirely. You're not building cities. You're controlling a squad of cybernetically enhanced agents running around doing corporate espionage, assassinations, and generally causing chaos in service of your mega-corporation. Think less SimCity, more top-down squad-based mayhem with a proper dark cyberpunk edge to it. Syndicate were a great little series, originating in 1993, developed by Bullfrog Productions for MS-DOS. Bullfrog, if you don't know, were absolute legends. Same studio that made Theme Park, Theme Hospital, Dungeon Keeper. They know how to make games that were fun, deep, and had that slightly twisted sense of humour that British developers nailed in the 90s. Original Syndicate dropped you into this grim cyberpunk future where mega corporations run everything. Governments are basically powerless. And you're playing as one of those corporations trying to take over the world one city at a time. You'd send in your squad of 4 agents, cyborgs basically, augmented with all sorts of tech. Gameplay were brutal. You could have your agents mow down crowds of civilians if you wanted. Game didn't judge you. You were playing as bad guys, and it let you be bad guys. What made it brilliant is how tactical it was. Do you go in loud and violent or sneaky? Do you persuade civilians to cause distractions or kill everyone who gets in your way? All morally questionable options, my kind of game. Visually, add an isometric perspective, proper dystopian atmosphere. Cities look grimy and oppressive. Soundtrack with dark industrial techno. Game were ahead of its time. Then in 1996, Syndicate was dropped. Sequel, still Bullfrog, still real-time tactics, but refined everything. Better graphics, more complex missions, deeper systems. You could play as either corporation trying to maintain control or resistance trying to bring whole system down. Both games are available on GOG right now. DRM free, currently on sale with 46% discount. £5.18 for both as a bundle. Yours to keep forever. Now fast forward to 2012. EA, who'd acquired Bullfrog and eventually shut them down because EA kills everything good, decided they wanted to revive Syndicate. But instead of making a proper sequel to those real-time tactics games, they handed it to Starbreeze Studios and said, make it a first-person shooter. That's what they did. Syndicate 2012 were a complete genre shift. FPS, cyberpunk setting, you're playing as an agent working for a mega corporation, augmented with tech that lets you hack an environment and enemies. Sounds cool on paper, and to be fair, it wasn't a bad game. Had decent shooting mechanics. Hacking were fun. Visuals are solid. But here's the problem. It wasn't Syndicate. Not really. It took name and some surface-level cyberpunk aesthetics, but completely abandoned what made original games special. No squad tactics, no moral ambiguity, no top-down strategic gameplay. It was just another FPS in a market already flooded with them. It's like if someone made a Mario game but turned it into a gritty third-person cover shooter. You can call it Mario, but it's not Mario, is it? Critical response were mixed. Game sold poorly, didn't get a sequel. Franchise went back into hibernation. Another casualty of EA thinking every game needs to be Call of Duty. So to answer your question directly, is 2012 reboot a good addition to the franchise? Nah, not really. It's a decent shooter if you ignore name on box, but as a Syndicate game, completely misses the point. But if you want something newer and closer to originals, check out Satellite Reign. This is where it gets interesting. Some of original Bullfrog staff who worked on Syndicate were properly pissed off when EA turned their creation into an FPS, so they formed their own studio, 5 Live Studio, and in 2015 released Satellite Reign. It's a true spiritual successor to original Syndicate games. Real-time tactics, squad-based gameplay, cyberpunk setting, top-down perspective. It's basically what a modern Syndicate game should have been. 4-agent squad, proper dystopian city to explore, loads of ways to approach mission. Also available on GOG, DRM free, yours to keep forever. If you love real-time tactical games and you're a fan of original Syndicate but never played Satellite Reign, you really should. It's what Syndicate 2012 should have been, made by people who actually understood what made original games great. So, ages, mate, play others if you want real Syndicate. Now then, thank you guys for this week's questions. Absolute bangers, every single one of them. 2,005 subscribers now. 2,005 people who've clearly got excellent taste and questionable life choices in equal measure. I proper appreciate every single one of you. Even that one bloke who only subscribed to argue with me in comments. You're doing God's work, pal. Well, someone's work. Probably Satan's, but still. And to me members, James Lima, Birkinell, Silver Bullet 90, Asian Persuasion, Abapical, Scotty Seether, and Mayhem. You absolute legends. You're basically funding my ability to sit here and tell people they don't own the games while drinking Yorkshire tea. Without you lot, I'd have to get a real job, and nobody wants that. At least they're all my future employer. Birkinell, mate, your name alone makes me laugh every time it pops up. Never change. And I'm not forgetting you, too. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Sat there thinking I don't mean you personally. I do. You may be one of 73% of non-subscribed people watching me content, but you are watching. So thank you for sparing a bit of your time. It's truly appreciated. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, hit the subscribe button, because you know it helps me out massively, and it'll annoy YouTube's algorithm, which is always a bonus. Like, subscribe and all that bollocks. Drop your comments and questions below. And remember, if you actually own your games, you're already ahead of 96% of Steam users. I'll see you next time, you magnificent.